What's up, good people of the world? It's the Big Heavy, and today we're gonna get a little bit psychological or, hippy-dippy, whatever you want to call it.
What a bunch of hippy-dippy baloney.
But want to talk to you about one of the things that's quite frankly changed my life, and it's something I wish I had learned and understood a little bit more about quite a few years earlier. But despite the fact that I am a bit of an old dog, I have indeed been able to learn a few tricks along the way, and wanted to share some thoughts with you around doing hard things. And that's frankly the idea that's changed my life, immeasurably for the better. And it's something I believe in so much that towards the end of this video, I'll do a little bit of an incentive to hopefully get you to experience the, I guess joy might be the right word. Maybe it's blood, sweat, and tears that comes from doing hard things, but that's ultimately something that I believe has made me a better person and hopefully can make you a better person. The crux of this whole idea is that I think anything worth doing in life is going to require doing something hard. It's going to put you in a space that's outside of your comfort zone. It's going to generate some anxiety. It's going to feel anywhere from a bit disquieting and uncomfortable to, downright, in some cases, scary and, get your heart beating and get the sweat forming on your brow and that sort of thing. And much like anything in life, I think the more you can develop a capacity to face hard things, to deal with them, to deal with the highs that come from success at doing something hard, down to that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when you're not able to do the hard thing, but at least you know that you stepped up to the plate, you gave it your all, and you're able to look back and see what you could have done differently, or maybe the universe just dealt you a bad hand and you develop that ability to have faced the challenge, and despite failing, pick yourself off the ground, dust yourself off, and get ready to do the next hard thing. You don't have to look very far these days to see all sorts of news headlines about the crisis in mental health and everything from opioid overdoses to record levels of clinical depression and all these bad things that are going on in society. And I don't think that going out and doing a hard physical activity or facing some challenge or something like that is the miracle cure-all to all this stuff. But I do think it is part of it. Maybe our world's getting more complex. Maybe we as human beings aren't necessarily designed to deal with everything from all these crazy challenges to unprecedented levels of digital connectivity combined with unprecedented levels of lack of interhuman connectivity. That's probably a topic for people way smarter than I am. But I do think that having that ability to go and face challenges, to execute things that maybe you were worried you wouldn't be able to do, is a bit, maybe a tiny bit of the solution to some of these challenges that we're facing as a society. I'm going to focus mostly on hard physical activities out in the outdoor world because I think that's something that's easy to conceptualize, it's relatively easy to train for, it's something that hopefully pretty much everyone around the world has access to. But there's hard things that are all around us. Those hard things can be everything from going and asking for a raise, maybe taking on some project that you didn't necessarily believe you could do at work. For me, that could be anything from going and working with a client in an industry that I've never worked in before, to going out and dealing with some content area that I've got no experience with. On the more interpersonal side, doing hard things can be everything from being a great daughter, son, spouse, friend or whatnot, to having the wherewithal and gumption to go out and try something that's exceptionally difficult, like forming a new relationship, or the act of having children. I think is a wildly hard thing and takes a large measure of confidence and hope and all those sorts of things to do these days. So there's hard things all around us. And just like if you want to learn how to do a push-up, you can watch all kinds of videos, you can read all kinds of books, but you're not going to make any progress until you get your butt down on the floor and go and push yourself up a few times. Doing hard things is something that I believe also requires reps. You can watch videos like this, you can read all the philosophy and psychology and neuroscience behind it, and I'm not smart enough to articulate all those to you, but there's an emerging body of science that shows that actually doing hard things is really good, both chemically in our brains and psychologically. But at the end of the day, unless you go out and get some reps doing something hard, all the technical knowledge in the world isn't going to actually give you that capability to do hard things. So if you come out of this video with anything, it's that, yes, doing hard things is great, but get out there and do some reps versus looking for the perfect opportunity or, having some desire to spend 6 months reading about this and listening to all the hippy-dippy podcasts and all that stuff. Get out and take a walk this afternoon if you haven't taken a walk for a long time, or go out and schedule some hard race or something that's beyond what you think your capabilities are in 6 months or whatnot. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So why would you want to do hard things? I think that's a fair question to spend some time on before we delve into the practical aspect of what kind of hard thing to choose and how to get yourself ready for that. First of all, I think doing hard things and trying to incorporate that into your life makes you what the psychologists these days are calling an anti-fragile human being. That's somebody that life can kick you around a little bit and you're not going to shatter. You think of something fragile, it may be beautiful, it may be nice, but you have to keep it up on that special shelf where no one can bump it. Just handling it might feel brittle, it might feel like something that you could drop and break, versus you go out and pick up something that's anti-fragile, to use the fancy term, like a rock or a brick or something. You might throw the thing around, it might get scratched up, little pieces might chip off here and there, but the whole thing's not going to fall apart. The whole generally stays intact, and I think that's a reasonably good analogy for human beings. If you can turn yourself into that rock or that brick or that anti-fragile human, life is going to mash you around. Maybe after 100 years, your corners are worn smooth a little bit. You got some little nicks and dips and divots in there. But you contrast that with the fragile individual that one little poke and they're a shattered pile of glass or something like that. Doing hard things also develops in you an ability to kind of pause and to face adversity. Again, we talked about there's all these things in life that are going to generate uncomfortable situations and generate anxiety. If you're accustomed to doing hard things and you've built a little bit of that muscle, you can see those coming. And you have that knowledge of how your body's going to react. You've been there before, you felt your heart start to beat a little faster, you felt your chest tighten up a little bit. You've maybe had that experience of having that tiny voice in the back of your head saying, holy crap, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it through this. And if you've experienced that 3 or 4 times, you can take a deep breath. You can measure and calm down that heart rate and that crazy breathing. You can tell that little voice in the back of your head, hey, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this successfully, but I know that we can face this and we can get through it. And you've got that comfort and that ability to face these stressful situations. And again, maybe you don't know right at the outset whether you'll be able to pull things off or not, but you at least know that you can make it through and that you can kind of manage yourself and your effort and your focus in order to give it your best shot. That's ultimately going to build your self-confidence and hopefully build a generally applicable self-confidence that you can apply to everything from work to relationships to whatever else you're facing. And it gives you this long-term gratification. I'm going to borrow a term from David Goggins, and I'll put a link to a couple of his books down below since that inspired me quite a bit. But he has this idea of the cookie jar. You go out and you do something hard and you kind of file that memory away in your little mental cookie jar. And next time you're out and you're getting kicked around, either during some sort of hard physical activity or just life in general, you can open up that cookie jar and you can pull out one of those things that you did in the past and say, hey, I've been here before. I survived, I did it well, and I know how to face this. And that's a pretty powerful ability to have. In terms of a sample size of 1, what has doing hard things brought me in my life? Well, probably 3 pretty big and impactful things. First of all, it's really brought me this sense that I don't really know where my personal physical limitations are. And keep in mind, this is coming from someone who was effectively a couch potato for the first 25 years of their life. The closest I ever got to any physical activity as a kid was probably playing Jordan versus Bird on a green screen computer, and later Nintendo and all those sorts of things. I don't think I ran a mile more than a couple or 3 times in my life until I was in my mid-30s probably. And now I've gone out, I ran a 5K, which I thought was this amazing and massively difficult accomplishment. Ultimately moved up to where I'm running 50+ mile ultra marathons, and I'm contemplating running a 100-mile ultra marathon later this year. Now that's not to imply that if you're a couch potato, you should go and sign up for a 100-mile ultra tomorrow. What it is implying is that you can start small and you can constantly push those limits of what you think are possible. And even if, like me, you think your limit is the ability to run 1 single mile, if you keep poking at that barrier and that barrier keeps moving further and further out, you might be amazed to find that there really isn't a limitation out there. I'm sure I have some limit somewhere, but I haven't found it yet. And that's kind of a cool thing to experience in your 40s, that all of these self-imposed restrictions and ideas about your own athleticism or your own abilities in whatever domain it may be actually aren't really real at all. And you can go and kick right through those and see what the next one is. I've also got much more self-confidence. I can go and find myself in situations, whether it's professional or athletic or whatnot, where I do get that little feeling in the pit of my stomach, but that voice in the back of my head is a lot quieter. And these days, more than saying, hey, danger, Will Robinson, we're in an unfamiliar situation, we want to get out of it here, it's saying, hey, we're in an unfamiliar situation, but here's some cookies from the cookie jar that I think can help. Here's that dose of confidence, because I know we can do hard things and I know we can make it through these types of situations. And that's allowed me to expand my career. It's allowed me to expand my relationships. It's allowed me to be a little bit more thoughtful on my own personal development and the things I pursue. And I think, although we probably need to do a little bit of a survey, it's hopefully made me a better father, better spouse, better friend, and all those sorts of things. So let's talk about what actually qualifies as a hard thing. And for me, there's 6 criteria that have some sort of impact on this whole hard thing idea. First of all, it should be something outside your comfort zone. Obviously, that varies for everybody. A hard thing for you may be a walk in the park for me, or vice versa. But it should be something that when you contemplate executing it, you get a little bit of a, hey, I'm not sure I can do this. The second thing I'd say is ideally it's something you do in the outside world. And why do I say that? I think there's essentially 2 reasons. First of all, just being outside in the physical world is a very good thing. I think most of us don't get enough of that. There's all sorts of research saying just being out in sunlight is, one of the most amazing things you can do for your health, along with getting a good night's sleep and getting some movement in your life. But the other thing I like about doing a hard thing in the actual outside physical world is there's a set of very real constraints. So much of our lives today are theoretical. You go on Facebook and kind of in the back of your mind, you're not seeing a real view of the world. All the pictures that your friends are showing are, them trying to present an idealized version of their life. That the algorithm's feeding you certain stuff, but there's no real way to prove that or disprove that. Similarly with a lot of the work that most of us do today, if you're a knowledge worker, you're kind of moving around and advancing theories and PowerPoints, and maybe you're a software engineer and writing code and that sort of thing. But you go outside and, a giant rock is real. You stub your toe against that thing, it's gonna hurt. It's real. Gravity is real. If you don't have good balance, you're gonna fall and you're gonna bust yourself. There's no arguments, there's no, the tree's not gonna bash you in the face because you believe the wrong thing politically, or, get out of your way if you believe the supposed right thing. Nature doesn't really care about you or your problems or your feelings or your hopes or your dreams, and sometimes it's beautiful, and it's beautiful because that's just the way it is, not because something that you did. Sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's cold and wet or hot or sweaty or stinky or muddy or whatever, but it's just there, and it's this force that kind of forces you to operate on its terms versus trying to operate or force it into some idealized model that you have. Third criteria along those same lines, do something physical. There's obviously people out there that have constraints where they maybe can't do something, or maybe they're completely ruled out from doing something physical. But we don't move our bodies enough these days. Again, I was a couch potato for most of my life. Now I'm a much bigger advocate for getting out and moving around. I think you'll find that if you're not somebody that exercises or moves physically a lot, you might find, after the initial discomfort, this newfound joy. I've found kind of a newfound respect for my body, what it can do, how it moves, and I'll find myself more often than not kind of being outside and being like, hey, it feels really good to move and to jump over things or to run or whatever. So if you're going to go out and do something hard, which is going to obviously involve some effort, try and make it something that involves your body and moving it in a new way, and maybe along the way you'll pick up that newfound respect for, even if you got a rather gangly and ungainly water buffalo-like physique as yours truly, you might find some newfound respect for it. I'd also make sure your hard thing requires some sort of different behavior. That's probably eating differently, training differently. Maybe it involves getting up early so you can put in the time to engage in that hard thing, but kind of forces you to change up your routine a little bit. I tend to find, and there's some sciencey stuff that backs this up as well, that if you're trying to create habit changes or to change things about your life, if you can kind of do them in little packets, you're more likely to be successful. So if your hard thing is going out and running an ultramarathon, maybe you're going to have to get up 2 hours early so you can get more training time, which maybe requires you to be a little more focused at work, which requires you to get a little more organized, and all these other things. And that one goal of doing this hard thing suddenly creates 7 or 8 positive changes in your life. And maybe only half of those stick, but at the end of the day, you did 3 pretty cool and positive things in your life versus doing none. I consider that a pretty large win. Final couple elements. Make sure your hard thing is calibrated to the you today versus either somebody else or from some previous or idealized future version of you. So what do I mean by that? I mentioned running, and we're going to talk a little bit more about running throughout the course of this, but one of the first really hard running things I did was signing up for a 5K. And it was just this, unfathomably massive challenge. And I'm kind of laughing about that now, being able to look back, 15, 20 years ago at the me that signed up for that 5K, at how big a deal I thought that was. But, that was a very hard and very big thing for, that version of me 20 years ago. I wouldn't sign up for a 5K tomorrow and consider that a hard thing now because, that's just something I go and do as part of a light training run. Similarly, I wouldn't measure what my hard things are against someone else. There's plenty of people that are out there doing 200-mile ultras and doing all sorts of crazy stuff and, running at speeds that I couldn't even keep up for a training run over the course of dozens or hundreds of miles. I'm not going to calibrate my hard thing either to those other people that are doing stuff way beyond my current abilities. I'm not going to calibrate my hard thing to, that past me of 5 or 10 years ago that, thought even running anything more than a half marathon was foolishness. I'm going to calibrate my hard thing to me today. So make sure you consider that. If you're a seasoned athlete in some sort of discipline and you want to do a hard thing in that same discipline, do something appropriate for your level of skill and experience. Similarly, if you're just starting out, if you haven't run a mile in the last 10 years, maybe start with running a mile and signing up for a 5K as your hard thing. Final aspect, and hopefully this is obvious, but sometimes it's worth stating the obvious, balance risk and reward. It would be a very hard thing maybe to go and base jump off the Empire State Building or something like that, but there's way more risk than there is on the reward associated with that. Similarly, it might be a super hard thing to go and do some, crazy hike on the top of a ridge during a thunderstorm, but the risk of getting struck by lightning or whatever probably outweighs whatever benefit that is. So, obviously keep in mind your current physical constraints, keep in mind your health, go and see your doctor, go and see your lawyer, go and see your, religious figure, psychologist, whatever you want to see to help you decide if a thing is right for you. And, don't do something that's going to get yourself killed, or don't do something that's, you're going to get yourself injured and kind of derail you from doing much of anything for the next 6 months, let alone doing hard things. So what are some examples of hard things? I've talked a lot about running. For me, that has been a long-term standby, and I hate to sound like one of those people, and I hated these people before I started running, but they wax poetic about the runner's high, how great they feel, they do this and that and see all these places. I'll spare you that. All I can say is if you're rolling your eyes a little bit right now, I was you. It wasn't that long ago. I literally had not run a mile for the first 20 years of my life more than 3-4 times, I'd say. And again, now I'm up to doing ultras because I, was willing to take that first step and willing to say, hey, at the time I started, a 5K is a really hard thing, but I can kind of work backwards and see how I could train for this. I could figure this out. There's a great program I've talked about before called Couch to 5K that I'll put down the link. So, if you're thinking, hey, maybe running's the thing I want to try for my hard thing, I would strongly suggest go and download that Couch to 5K program. It's free. There's apps and stuff that you can pay for, but the simple online version that I'll link to below is free. And to my earlier point about some sort of incentive, if you are a non-runner and you sign up for a 5K, or maybe if you're kind of a casual runner that's done a bunch of 5Ks or that sort of thing, but never really moved up beyond that and want to try a half marathon or something like that, drop me a note in the comments. I'm not quite sure how I'll figure this out, but if there's not something in the show notes, put your email address or whatnot in the comments, and I will pay your race fee, assuming that you execute a race that's at a distance you never tried before. It's something that's kind of within your ability level, and I think anyone that can walk can do a 5K after a few weeks of training. And as long as you go out and do the thing, and you can kind of send me some results page where I can go and see that you actually completed the race, I'll figure out a way to get you a Venmo or something to reimburse your race fee. And I'm not sure how many people I'll do this for. Obviously if there's 1 million people that somehow come out of the woodwork and watch this video, I don't have enough money to cover 1 million race fees, but I'll put something in the show notes if I do run out of money for that exercise. But until then, drop me something in the comments if that's something you do want to do, and I'll figure out a way to reimburse your race fee, assuming you tow up to the finish line and get her done. If you're totally anti-running, maybe if you're a cyclist, do some longer distance cycling event. If you're somebody that's maybe never really been in the outdoors, maybe figure out some kind of hike in like the 5 or 10 mile range that you can do that puts you well outside of your comfort zone and is something you maybe need to think about a little bit, maybe need to train for a little bit. You maybe do something with a little bit of altitude gain or something that just forces you into that moment of, hey, I'm not sure I can do this. But after you take a couple deep breaths, you can kind of work back and figure out, okay, there's a pathway that's going to at least get me able to kind of show up to the starting line and hopefully be able to get down to that finish line. The final note I'll give you on doing hard things, try and do at least one a year. And I try and calibrate those to my experience level. So I'm constantly trying to push things a little further out there and do something that ideally is a distance or a time or some sort of other metric that I've never done before. So it, again, forces me to get those reps in at standing up there and saying, hey, I'm not sure I can do this, but I'm gonna actually get after it and see if I can. So with that said, if you found this helpful, if you go out and do something hard, or if you sign up for something or set a goal, drop that down in the comments. Would love to hear some other ideas on hard things that maybe don't have a running stint. If you are somebody that's going to go out and try doing some sort of running event, or if you have some other idea, again, I'm within the constraints of numbers, willing to reimburse you your race fee if you go out and try something and go out and do that hard thing and hopefully get that memory and that experience to add to your own personal cookie jar and have that ready for next time life throws something challenging your way. And with that, this is the Big Heavy, wishing you peace in all your endeavors and telling you that, even though I'm not there, I am sitting here from my couch in the magical ether of YouTube, cheering you on as you go out and find and execute your own hard things. Best of luck to you. Big Heavy wishing you well. Ever wonder why every talking head on YouTube asks you to hit the like and subscribe button at the end of their video? You were right, because we're living in a computer simulation. And our benevolent robotic overlords get just a little bit of energy every time you hit that like. So do me, the rest of civilization, and our benevolent robotic overlords a favor. Mash that subscribe, be kind to each other, keep living your simulated dreams.